Good evening. You're listening live to the Xtreme Movie Show. Tonight's show, Xtreme TV. I'm your host, Rob. I am broadcasting to you live from the Pine Hills Palace, just west of Orlando, Florida. And gentlemen, while we're going to be talking about episodes 9 and 10 from season 1 of Ash versus Evil Dead, I can sit there and say, to all the people I know up there in Asheville, Charlotte, North Carolina, where you felt that earthquake, something must be happening. It must be, with the fact that Ash and everybody's coming down to Jacksonville, because all roads, gentlemen, lead to Florida. Good evening. How are we doing this evening?
I am doing great.
Doing fine myself.
Great. If you're like me, which you're not, because I'm in Florida and you guys are from the Midwest, you don't realize just how splendid Jacksonville is. And that's where the joke lies, because this whole episode 9 and 10 of Ash versus the Evil Dead, I think overall does a great job of sort of summarizing the show. It hits a lot of the highlights that we've talked about. Any of the lowlights I might have mentioned, not existent in here. We get everything that this show promised from the first few episodes and was pretty consistent with all the way through, and it really sets up a great season 2 for it. So I'm really excited to talk about episodes 9 and 10. So let's go around the horn for our initial impressions. RDV versus Evil Dead. Your initial thoughts on these final 2 episodes of season?
Well, the final, not the final episode, but the episode 9. Let's just say Amanda steps up. We kind of like, I imagine some people were kind of like, yeah, this character's kind of boring. And then whammy, she is a freaking Deadite.
Yes.
This really improved her character, sadly, even though it's not her character, it's someone else. But I think she had a lot of fun playing this too. And then with the hikers in the woods, doing the puppet show, that was, like I said, I feel it had a strong ending. It had a little plot twist, but it works out because, like I said, this show, the writer Robert Tapper knew what he was doing, so it works out in the end for the reason he chose the ending he did. Because that was more about comedy, and he liked comedy and gore, but he liked to keep it lighthearted, not completely just dark and dreadful, because that's what more of the fans, I guess, identified with, the slapstick super, like Three Stooges, basically horror with Three Stooges. That's basically what I got from this.
Well, I definitely want to come back to the Amanda part here when we dive deep into that. So, Professor Pixel, let's switch over to you. Final thoughts on these 2 episodes?
They were really good. It was. I think combined, they make a strong season finale. I made the mistake of watching one episode and then taking a couple days before doing the next, and I wish I'd watched them back to back, because in my mind they really feel like one extra long episode for a season finale, but they are really good. Especially, it's just, this whole show has been fantastic the entire time, and I'm really glad we got to watch it.
Well, I think you had a really good point there that I'm going to tie back to what Doctor was saying when you sat there and said it seemed like these episodes 9 and 10 seemed like one long continuation, and I agree. And I think that's some of the sharp editing that we've talked about early on about what really made this show work, especially considering they're only about half-hour episodes, roughly, if that, 25 to 30 minutes. So RDV, you'd mentioned the Amanda character. I'd mentioned that while she seemed kind of plain, kind of boring, I just wasn't vibing it. I thought she had a good look. It was nice to see her being confident. I was trying to find some juice in her character, and I just didn't feel that there was. And I felt that in an episode or 2 with her in it, and I don't think because of her, I just think the episodes were kind of almost starting to feel like filler, especially with the militia, which obviously is not a part of it. I think what you said is spot on, but it ties into Pixel's point about a strong finish. Just because a character dies doesn't mean we're done seeing them. So at the end of episode 8, of course, we're seeing some hitchhikers that we know are pretty much going to die off, or we could maybe see them in season 2. We don't know yet. So that's kind of neat, the fact that we have Pablo and Kelly joining the crew, and we expect them to be a part of it. They've proved themselves. But then here you've got Amanda, who basically gets whacked, completely gored, and it's just a bloodfest all the way through. But yeah, when you said that we get to have a lot of fun with her character and she had a lot of fun playing it, I think that's great. Why don't you talk about that for a moment?
Well, I noticed from the
what you recognize when you're watching
from the original movies and all. You talk about the girls who played his sister, and the one who played his girlfriend. When they became possessed, a lot of them is that they had fun at. The only thing they liked was the cloudy contacts. Now I'm not sure if contacts have improved since since the early '80s. I'm sure they have. They've gotten better ones.
Yes,
but But I gotta say though, whenever I see these people, like it seemed like she had more fun. It was just doing stuff like that. I would agree that a lot of people do have more when they're able to just pretend to be something else and like that, being the normal drab. She's all serious now. Now she's having fun. You can tell it. You can tell by the character, by the smile on her face, the little one-liners she's getting now.
Yeah.
Because up to that point, the only really people that got like the fun one-liners and all that stuff, the cool stuff was Kelly and Ash. So.
Yeah, and I think like I'd said before, we had a chance to kind of see Pablo and Pablo just in general. I think he's one of those characters that I was watching this episode going, man, I just don't know how things are going to work out for him. I can't decide if he's supposed to be kind of a wuss ass or what, because that's one thing about the show that I think is pretty obvious. If you watch it, the women are very strong characters, very independent, yet they don't come across as being too feminist or too in your face where it's a turnoff or anything. They're strong enough where you get to see them, and on the screen time that you get in these 2 episodes, you go, okay, that makes sense. But what I also like too is that Pablo gets his time to shine, and everybody gets a few moments to get their stuff in, and it's kind of all done well too. Even some of the newer characters like the hikers that we get to see in this episode too. So Pixel, what stood out to you in these 2 episodes? What do you want to talk about?
Well, in the first episode, the one thing that I really enjoyed was when Ash is dismembering his clone. Just the 2 of us is playing. And then the blood seeps from the body and makes its way over to the Necronomicon.
Mm-hmm.
Then the Necronomicon starts talking to him and trying to convince him not to bury it, but to use it. Because
that was pretty cool.
Yeah. He's saying basically, without me, you're nothing. And partially he's true. What he's saying is true. He's not lying, because Ash, without the Necronomicon having the demons the Deadites to summon, there's the value shop.
It gives him agency. It's his precious.
But Ash then throws it in the fridge, closes it, and goes to chop up Amanda, because he knows what's right. At least in this episode.
Yeah, and instead of Pablo and Kelly having to rely on him, like I said, they're all separated here, and then you get the hikers come in, and of course you wonder if that's just there to be convenient kill count, or if they're going to be a factor in anything, or are they getting groomed. But what you also don't see too much of, and you start seeing it in these 2 episodes here, is you realize that even though Amanda has been following them and now she's turned into a Deadite and having some fun, Ruby shows up, and Ruby is somebody that we go, okay, we know she's more human than human, and somehow she's going to tie some stuff together. And so this is what I think is really good writing for these 2 episodes, in that however the showrunners have decided to stage this, if there is not going to be anything more than a season 1, you could end it here with these 2 episodes and be done with it. Now, obviously they renewed it, so you got some characters already established that could go forward that are very functional, that they don't have to rely on Ash entirely to be on screen to be effective, and we're rooting for him. And I think that's the really strongest surprising point of this entire season 1. But Ruby herself adds a lot of better backstory, which we did not get until now. So again, one of the best things I think about this whole show in this season 1 is that if you didn't watch the films and you're not familiar with the character, you can still watch it and enjoy it and get a lot out of it. Where if you're somebody like me that's seen all the films, and I know you guys have seen them too, you get a lot more backstory with it too, and you go, oh, okay, they saved all this stuff here in 9 and 10. They didn't try to just shove a bunch of crap in our face. They just had fun with it and gave us just barely digestible parts to string us along, with great openings, great closing, which lead us to the next episode, and great music. So yeah, I just think that really, really jumped out to me, and that's one of the best things about these 2 episodes. What else, guys?
Well, I was going to say, it just, I agree with you. For those who've watched the movies, there are some nods to the movies, certain things he does. The whole, especially in episode 10, I believe, with the it's with what's her name, Amanda. Amanda goes up to Ash, and she basically like they're fighting and all. He's only got his Nintendo Power Glove on, which I still think is hilarious.
That's right. I keep forgetting his Nintendo Power Glove.
And she's got the chainsaw and like and they're fighting and like and she's checking him like up against the cabin wall. And she's like, "What's wrong? What's wrong, baby? Don't you find me beautiful?" He's like, "I'm so glad I dumped you." But there is like a nod back to basically Army Darkness when his girl he had slept with she got kidnapped by the Deadites and then was turned into like the evil Ash is basically his Deadite bride. So when she sees Ash, she's like, "Don't you find me beautiful?" He's like, "Baby, you got real ugly." So there are little nods to like the movies. And the one things they say, that one things Ash does, which I love, because they keep it with the character. They're keeping it canon.
There's a point where Ruby opens up her book whenever she's talking to Ash. I'm pretty sure that it's after Ash falls down the stairs into the basement, and he gets sucked into basically a dream version of his trailer, which honestly feels too large. Yeah.
Yeah, they make some good ones, especially if you're down here in Florida.
I know, but just looking at the outside and you look at the inside, something feels off.
It's a TARDIS, leave it alone.
Sorry. You pulled a Doctor Who reference. I'm proud. What was I saying? In the dream trailer sequence, she opens the book and basically says that she knows all about him, and it shows him with the chainsaw hand in the pose like an Army of Darkness.
Yes.
So there are nods all throughout. I think actually I'm trying to remember, is it actually when he's down in the basement? Or is it before he goes in the basement?
Well, I remember
and he has like a flashback, and we see him.
I believe that's when he fell down into the basement and all that too. I think you see him tumbling.
Well, first he had to go. First he's like, "Oh, you kidding me? I have to go in the basement." And then when he goes down, he falls and hits his head on the steps, like he did in the first movie when they threw him down in Evil Dead 2. He fell down and he basically hit his head, and you see him stand up. He's just kind of looking around. You see like a little star and stuff almost. They did kind of cartoonish.
Well, it's true. That is like a nod to the other movie. You're absolutely right about
that. What was great though is now he's down there. The thing closes behind him, and all of a sudden basically the tape recorder from the original guy, it's supposed to be him. It's a different voice actor, but they get him reciting the Kandorian, talk about the Kandorian dagger and all that stuff, the connected armor on. That's from the Evil Dead 2. And I love how Kelly's in there, and she starts shooting the cabin. We all know the cabin's alive, at this point, because she shoots the cabin, and the one girl, she's like, "Why is it bleeding?" I'm like, "Oh, that's the cabin that's fucking with us." I love Kelly. I'm like, is your character from New Jersey or what? Where's she from?
No, God, she doesn't have that bad hair or chewing.
No, but I'm saying she's got the attitude.
No, she's a tough girl, and we know why, and that's been developed, and
I know.
She pulls it off, Dana, the actress. So that's, I don't think, very easy to do. Where you go, okay, right,
dude. I see her character. If they weren't in this thing, she'd be playing roller derby.
Well, that's a good point, and I wonder too, because of her kind of cynical nature and what's going on with her. In a way, you could say she's almost like a female Ash, where she's kind of like starting to have bad things happen to her life. I don't think that was the intentional plot of going forward with the show, if they ever got rid of Ash and they just continue with these two. But it made me think
that, like I said, after season 2, doing this stuff, the way how she is, that I believe that was originally their intent. Like I said, that they went a different way in season 3.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's the case, and you may be right on that. I don't know. And obviously, you can leave certain potential, end games or new storylines, if you will, going forward with it too. But one of the things I think stood out at this point here that you're mentioning that I think is really good is that at this point, this is where it's women versus women, or the women are separated from the boys and doing their own thing. Because, back in one of the earlier episodes, it might have been, I think, the second one, where they go to see the occult bookstore owner, and I popped for his character because he really loved his role. But I commented around then that the book, the Necronomicon, looked so fantastic, and here it gets its own screen time when it gets its face cut off of the actual book itself, and then it attaches itself to Pablo's face. Pablo's puking up a demon kid. I mean, these 2 episodes are just,
well, yeah,
like you said, one big runoff together, and it's really good.
Let's touch on that. Why it was Ruby that cut the face off the thing
with the dagger.
With the dagger, because reason she says it because she needs a new face for the book.
Mm-hmm.
And I love how she basically, towards the end there, she basically takes the dagger up to Ash's face and starts cutting him. He's like, "Well, I need a face," It's like, and then at the point she makes him making a deal with him. And I love that. It's like, and he's like, "Well," she's like, "You're not 6 stars. Aren't you tired? You never asked for this stuff. You could just go on and live your best life and stuff. You don't have to worry about this. Have your hand back and all that stuff. And he kind of, and I can see him at first. He's like, you don't think Ash is that stupid, but I love at the end. It's like he's that stupid.
Yeah, the deal is to have their normal life, him and the 3 of them in Jacksonville, Florida, and that's the whole point. Is that the flashback they have in here was one that they had talked about earlier in the season, where he was getting high with some chick trying to have sex and all that too, and he read some poetry, which is really in the Comic-Con. That's what released it. So he's the reason why they got himself in more trouble, and he's doing it again now, just on a bigger global scale. I mean, that's perfect. That totally suits his character.
Oh, like I said, this whole entire episode's been really good. I love because when Ruby was jumped on top of him, and she's like, and she draws blood, and Ash tells her to wait because she needs to know one thing, and he asks her, like, did you lose weight? Like I said, he is. I mean, he takes like Al Bundy, and he's like, Al Bundy, hold my beer, hold my keg, actually. And just takes to a whole nother level. I love it.
Let's talk a little bit about one character that showed up in the Hikers, because the Hikers all, of course, get massacred, but one gets a bit more screen time, and that's Heather, who is, of course, Samara Weaving, Hugo Weaving's daughter, I believe.
Yeah, Hugo Weaving.
Her in on the Too Extreme horror show that we do, and I think it was called The Babysitter, and she seems like a scream queen potential if there were such a thing in today's movies. And I think for her, you get to see a lot of nasty stuff that normally you go, okay, this show's doing pretty good, but they really amped it up, and you go, yeah, that's exactly how the movies were. She's tripping out. She's seeing cockroaches coming up from her hoo-ha area up her body, and then she, like you said, when they're shooting up the house and she sees blood, she's like, oh, the house is just screwing around with us or whatever too. Kelly slaps her and is basically, you got to get a grip on yourself, woman. So it's kind of neat to see her go through all. Of course, she had the busted leg, which is graphic. She sees the eyeball in the wall looking at him. I mean, it's kind of cool that you say, okay, here's just a little extra, people to die, but also to kind of totally get it. She gets blood everywhere on her. I mean, it's just disgusting.
When I saw the eyeball, I'm like, oh, no one better get an eyeball down their throat.
Yeah, no. Whenever the eyeball got shot, or not shot, it was hit with an axe, but it bled too, and she was the one who caught the blood again. That poor Heather.
And she was walking around on the floor with those nails sticking out, and she's just, it's disgusting.
At that point, she's just screaming because it's all she can do now. It's like you can see how tired she is of this in her face.
Well, yeah, the nails weren't helping either.
Well, yeah, but that's why.
I mean, she got nailed. Little sense.
Oh, no.
Dalton, is that you?
Who?
Who's Dalton? I've heard that name in a while.
There's a Steve we'll be talking about in season 2 if we get to it, but that's for another conversation. So I think the neat thing about having Samara Weaving in here as the hiker is that it gives her a little bit of screen time. I don't know the politics behind why she was selected and everything too, but it allowed these 2 episodes to be completely disgusting and even gross without necessarily Ash or Kelly or Pablo taking the full brunt of all that, because they've had stuff happen to them, but to really drive home the point of just how gross and disgusting the show could be or is or whatever, they do it here, and it's so over the top. And even though she does such a great job at it, it's kind of disgusting to watch. And that's where I think the show's really effective, because, like I've said from the beginning, the effects on the show, the practical effects, what we're used to, the Sam Raimi style, totally work. And these 2 episodes, if nothing more, it's like on the meta level. The entire season starts off with a bang. It finishes with a bang. It hooks you to go into the next episode. There's some great music in here too. There's no more Mr. Nice Guy when they're riding off to Jacksonville, and Kelly and Pablo are looking at him like, what an idiot. I can't believe he's doing this. And they're all just kind of bound together, heading off to sunny old Jacksonville, Florida, while the earthquakes and craters are kind of opening up behind them, some sinkholes and stuff. So it's even worse. That's what this whole show is. And I give them credit for being able to stretch it out over 10 episodes that feel just long enough with no filler. One of those episodes, 6 or 7, I thought was kind of weak, the militia one or whatever, that angle, I think slowed it down. But even that, honestly, is just a blip on the radar when you think of all the entire 10 episodes that we saw. So I gotta sit there and say, based off my original comments, that I was really wanting the show to be entertaining and fun, and I want it to be the same way that I fondly remember the movies. And I will say, I think it succeeded in all that. But not only that, it did the rare thing of being able to introduce a few other characters that I thought, you know what, they've grown on me. I understand them. They don't talk down to me. They seem. It's hard to say this because I think Pablo just a little bit less than Kelly. I think they're well cast, and I think there's more that you can flesh out with Pablo, and I still think of Kelly as like a female Ash going into season 2. Don't know what will happen, but I got to give him credit. I didn't think there could be pull this off, and I got to say, on a scale of like 1 through 10, I'd give it probably like about a 9, because it's just about perfect as you can get. And glad to see that everyone seemed like they had fun, and it captured the spirit of everything it needs to be, and it definitely left me wanting season 2. So overall, that's what I think about this entire show. I was able to kind of breathe a sigh of relief at the end and go, my God, it's so good, it's so entertaining, and it didn't like turn a certain way and start sucking halfway through, which unfortunately, in today's world of all of these TV shows getting dumped out there, you might get hooked in a few episodes or maybe not, and then you go whatever. No, this show does work that way through 10 episodes. And I got to give him credit. I was very.
No, you're roboting again, real bad.
What's that?
I don't know what's going on, man. I think you must be trapped.
Well,
are you in the cellar with Henrietta? Is that where you are? You're trapped in the cellar?
No. It is storming down here, though. I will say that. Yeah, so final thoughts overall, just on the entire series. Let's go around the horn.
Well, like I said, the entire series has been great. When I first announced that they were going to do this, I was like, oh, this is going to be good. And I said Bruce Campbell. I'm like, well, Bruce Campbell usually puts, stuff. And then I'm like, Sam Raimi. I'm like, this could turn out to be really good. And you know what? I said, half the crap they did in this first season, I've never seen another show do. Never. Other Netflix shows are trying to be kind of girls stuff but like none of them had this kind of spirit, this kind of attitude and like character development like this real fast. What I loved about it is the humor. It's like I forgot what episode, but he goes in the cabin and he looks the work shed, and he goes to grab, he pulls the curtain to look for the chainsaw. It was either at the cabin or it was at the trailer, and he knows that the chainsaw's gone. And there's a chalk outline where it used to be. And I love when they do that. It's like he's like, what? Because most people, if you just didn't have the chocolate, you're like, what is he looking for? No, it makes more sense. And it was like the chocolate does outline where that was. It's like, oh, that's what he's looking for. And then you see like him getting attacked with a chainsaw, like the next scene. I said like the little Easter eggs they put in here and throughout the series has been great too. I mean, it's just Sam Raimi when he does this. Except with Bruce Campbell, they care a lot about the fans. Sadly, I think the show ended up getting canceled because the low ratings, and the third season really didn't help because the second season was like it was great, better than the first in my opinion, but the ratings that were starting to drop off because you gotta remember people were competing with The Walking Dead at the time. you also had people who were also pirating. Like a lot of people who pirate stuff. So I remember like Bruce Campbell and them saying, please go buy Stars. Don't pirate this because it'll help us with the ratings. And I remember like a lot of people were like, it's like, yeah, people are pirates, they're dicks. We want, you're not a true Ash fan. I'm like, and I was like, they're getting really serious about this because sadly it does help. It happens at every show. But my thing is putting it on Stars works out probably for the gore because they put on a cable channel, they probably wouldn't got to see as much. But not everybody wants to buy Stars. That's the thing. I can see people buying HBO, but I don't know if HBO would allow that. HBO had, or Skinamax, like they call it.
Right, back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, there's stuff like that. But I mean, like, I guess if you buy Stars, and I'm not sure what if its price is. I think it's like $10 a month, or was it time? I don't know. This was during the Obama year, so a lot of things were a little more pricey than they were now. But yeah,
it's an interesting point because, I don't remember. Black Sails is a show I really liked. I thought was high quality, and I think it started on YouTube, and I think it might have went over to Stars. And usually, when you have a station like say Stars or HBO or whoever, yeah, they will have a back catalog depending on who their parent company is, and we have these content wars going on. But when you bring back a property like Ash versus Evil Dead that has a built-in base, a part of you goes, man, if that would bring us into Stars, if they had something else that was like this that they brought back and resurrected, I think that could have made the channel a lot more appealing too, to get people in and go, hey, well, guess what? We were successful in the Ash versus Evil Dead franchise. That would be a nice signal to, let's say if you want to keep it horror or something and say, hey, let's bring back something that, for limited run, and we kind of reboot it this way because now we've got a track record of being successful. I don't know that they did that. I'm not too familiar with Stars myself. So it's hard for me to sit there and say, judge what they decide they want to do. But to me, it was like a no-brainer. This is so good. Why didn't you try that? And I don't think that they've done that. Now, let's not say they haven't had successful shows, but to your point, God, they could have been known for the place to go rather than Netflix or some other place.
Well,
where you can have the control and reboot something.
Well, I look at Chiller. Chiller's trying to do that right now with being the source for all your horror stuff, TV series, movies, and stuff. That's Chiller didn't start up until I think after the series ended.
No, Chiller has been around for a while.
Has it?
Yes,
I've never heard about it.
They've gotten dropped from a lot of cable subscribers in general because of the way the tiered programming works. Because honestly, that Chiller was the last channel that I would watch a lot of. I mean, I have Shudder, and so I'll watch that occasionally, and their interface isn't bad. But in terms of content, you knew what you were going to get with Chiller, and Chiller had some okay stuff on there. I don't think there's anything wrong if your Stars to be or something.
I remember watching it. I watched it was a Halloween, and I was watching Evil Dead 2, I think it was, or the first one on Chiller. It was at my sister's house. I was flipping through. I'm like bored. I'm in the middle of the country, pretty much, or at least I call it the country life because they're in the middle, pretty much outside the skirts of town. So you get what you get out there. There ain't much to do unless you want to go out and just have a bonfire, shoot your gun. So drink some beer. So I'm there. I'm watching. It's like probably midnight. It's just like Halloween Eve, or just for the midnight. And I was watching that. I was like, oh, and my sister sat down. She's like, I never watched this. I'm like, it was hilarious. How you've never seen this? Because I remember, like I said, my introduction to this was I actually sat down and actually watched it trailer of this when we finally got internet and stuff. Like computers in the early 2000s. Mm-hmm. So, but before this, I saw Evil Dead 2. I saw the skull, the cover for the VHS. Yep. So that's why I remember seeing. I'm like, that looks gross. Why would anybody want to watch that? And then I realized it was a freaking comedy. So then I went back and watched the original one. This was back when Suncoast was still around. Remember that? Sam Goody and Suncoast. Yep. Yeah. So I ended up buying the first DVD and the second DVD. And I got both of the Screaming Necronomicon book editions. So when you push, they were the base of the Necronomicon, the whole entire thing. It was a book, the face and everything.
Not necessarily new material. It's something.
But it was funny though, because you should push a button on those things that go. You hear the scream, the girl screaming. So, and it had everything, and like It's exact same book they had to show you in the movie, page for page.
Yep.
But the one thing I want to buy, though,
I was going to say, well,
I want to buy the Kandorian dagger. That'd be a nice prop to have.
Oh, it looks so cool.
Well, I don't know how the merch went with it, but the thing is, you know, Chiller was a good TV station. They had good stuff on it. And again, to your point, and I think it's a good one, is that, you know, there is a market for content that's not made or that's been made yet that, you know, just maybe hasn't been shown. And for example, I just watched a movie called Squirm that came out in the mid 70s. And it's basically about worms that get, you know, electrocuted, or the ground gets electrocuted, worms come out and they terrorize people, and it's stupid, it's dumb, it's whatever, but it's actually shot well. It's fairly decent. It's extremely super low budget, made a crap ton of money, would have been a great drive-in type of film, and there's a lot of very notable names to it. And that's the type of film that here on the Xtreme Movie Show that we sometimes take a look at, and while it may seem like a Mystery Science Theater kind of one-off, that doesn't mean there wasn't something behind it. And so unfortunately, I don't think Starz, I don't know if they've had anything as successful as Ash vs. the Evil Dead, because they're only going to get certain ratings for it, and after a certain point they're only going to put so much money to it. I get that, but in terms of quality of the content, I agree with you. I think it's top notch. Pixel, what about you? Let's wrap up what you've got for the entire series so far.
I really think I really like how it feels connected, because whenever I heard about it, I was very interested. At the same time, I was worried about how it would go, because most shows that try to continue off of something else, they really fail to live up to the hype. But this was beautifully connected to that. Just 30 years later, and it's still all that action. It's still got all the gore, and it's still as cheesy as it was back then.
Well, this was your first watch, right?
Yeah, it was.
Okay, so I mean, based on what you've seen, did anything surprise you about it, or anything disappoint you? I mean, do you plan on watching the second season?
I plan on continuing, definitely. I want to keep going on. I'm quite the completionist, so if there's more to something, I just buckle down and try to finish it all.
Well, I'm glad that we did this. This is obviously the farthest we've went on our season 1 reviews of different TV shows on there too. Something brand new for the Xtreme Movie Show. So I think it's worked out well. I think a lot of people in the comment sections and the notes I've gotten through the weeks are pretty much all echoing the same thing, that they've enjoyed it. They're surprised at how good it was. And that's definitely worth a watch. And I know that there's the occasional talk of, well, even though Bruce Campbell doesn't necessarily want to be a part of it anymore, or whatever the issues are that are out there, doesn't mean it couldn't continue. And part of me goes, well, it left us wanting more. And what can you say about entertainment? That's always a good place to have. So if they were to do a season 4 or do a reboot and just have, say, Pablo doing something, or Kelly, or some kind of combination, because of how good just season 1 is, I definitely would be interested in watching it. So we'll see how that goes. It'll be interesting for us to see what new show for season 1 will debut next week and see what comes up with that. So I'm looking forward to finalizing a decision based on some previous stuff that we've talked about. I'd like to thank you guys for showing up, especially not just for tonight, for the entire season. I think everything went well for it, and I appreciate the fact that we've pulled in a slightly different group of new people and joining the Xtreme Movie Show too, as we're getting very close to being monetized. Certainly appreciate that. And the team from I Love Comics, who jumps in with us a little bit later on at 8 o'clock Eastern stream that we'll be doing here shortly. So for RDV, for Professor Pixel for showing up, and for everybody here at the Xtreme Movie Show, I'd like to say thanks for listening. Thanks for sharing. I'm Rob. Have a good night. And as always, stay extreme.
Stay groovy, kids.
So long.